here we are on our lodge again for episode 9. And we're going to talk a little bit this is going to conclude our first season videos. And people ask us, they said, well, do you guys have a story? And Mike had a story. Why don't you share with something that happened when a lady wrote a letter years later?
Right. I was in a detective bureau, and lady had called. She was an elderly lady. She had called about these thugs that were basically running her out of her own house. So she said she was going to write me a letter and explain to me everything that was going on. And she wrote a letter, and it was very, very moving. And then we actually came to a really good conclusion on this. And I think, Paul, if you want to read the letter, it'll tell you everything from, what this lady did. I mean, she took her own house back in a not so nice neighborhood. And, again, something we should all be proud of. This lady, God love her, and we had a couple of correspondences and got rid of the problem. So I was happy about that, but she followed up with me, and I'll let Paul go ahead and do that.
Yeah, because it takes a lot of courage when you're in these rough neighborhoods for an individual to step forward. It's risky business, and I never saw this. Mike showed it to me, and I went, holy mackerel, man. And it's so the last paragraph, all handwritten, all very nice, well put together. She writes in conclusion, I will continue to help you in any way I can. I can't say enough good things about you guys. I also want you to know I wrote a letter to the chief about you guys. I don't feel you get the appreciation you deserve, so I'm letting you know. Just remember you have friends up here at her address, and if you are ever in the area, feel free to stop by. If you ever need something passed, just let me know, and I will write a letter. And it's kind of like you won't read that in your newspaper or any stories pretty much on the internet, but you'll see it here, and we're going to continue to share things like this. And now mine involved right before I retired. It was unseasonably cold and rainy for August in Northeast Ohio, and I was driving down the street and coming up to a red light, and there's a bus stop right at the red light, and I looked over, and there was a mother with her son and daughter there. They're about in their 5 years old age, right in there, and it was rainy and drizzling, and they had a small umbrella, and they were all huddled under there trying to stay dry and warm. And I pulled up, and I put my emergency flashes on. I walked over. I said, "Hi, you guys." I said, how you doing? And they said, "Oh, hi, officer." I was in uniform, but I was in an unmarked car. And I said, "Where are you guys headed?" And they said there was a church a couple miles up the road. And I said, "Well, jump in. I'll give you a ride." So they did. And the mom sat in the front seat, and the two little ones were in the back. And we're going up the road. And I said, "Oh, what church and all that?" And she said, "Well, it's such and such. And they have on Thursdays, I think it was, they have a hot meal for the families, and the kids get to play games like that with other kids and stuff like that." And I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "That sounds great." And I looked back at the little ones. I said, "You think they'll let me play, or am I too big?" So they started laughing and stuff. And so we pull in, and there's a sign on the door. I couldn't read it or anything, but I noticed there was no cars or people and everything. And they started to get out, and I said, "Is this weird, or aren't there usually cars or people when you come?" She said, "Yeah, it is kind of weird, but maybe we're just early." So I said, "Well, why don't you go read the sign on the door there and see if it says anything?" And so she went up, read the sign on the door, and she came back to the car, and she said, "Well," and the handwritten sign said it was power outage, and the event was canceled for today. So I could see in my rearview mirror, the disappointment on the little ones' faces and stuff. They were troopers, though. It wasn't like, but I could just sense it. And I said, "Oh, that's too bad." And she said, "That's okay, officer. We'll just catch the bus and get back home." I said, No, we're going to go to Plan B immediately." And she said, "Well, Plan B, what's that?" I said, "Well, we're going to go get something together, go get a little bite to eat. Who's hungry?" And I seen smile in the back. I said, "Well, let's go." And the mom, she didn't want to think that I should have to do that. I said, no, I'm going to be retired. I'm going to get a little more in my check on my last check. So let's do this. Let's go have a bite to eat. So I drove them down to this fast food place, and placed our order and things like that. And I said, now we're going to need some dessert too. And I don't know if the gal on the intercom picked up on what was going on. And I go, we're going to need hot fudge sundaes, 4 hot fudge sundaes. I go, you guys like hot fudge sundaes? Smile. And she goes, okay, got it, 4 hot fudge sundaes. She goes, would you like sprinkles on any of those? And I look back and I see all the smiles and I said, well, yeah. I go, double sprinkles on all of them. And I turn around to them and I go, hey, who don't like sprinkles, huh? So we get the food and we go, I take them home, we have a bite together and stuff like that. And I looked at the little ones and I said, you know, it's a good life lesson for you. What looked like a real rainy and dreary day ended up being sunny. We got to know each other and have a nice little meal. I go, did you have fun today and all that? And they said, oh yeah, they did. So it was a good thing. And I'm telling my sisters this whole story at the table. And I said, so that's my good story. Well, I look over and they're all welled up and, you know, crying. They must have felt really touched by it and stuff. And I said, hey, you guys, you got to understand something. Police are doing this all the time, things like this. You know, it's happening every day. It's just you don't hear about it. You know, you're unaware of it. That's why Mike and I are now doing what we're doing to raise awareness, to get some positive stories out. And it's been a wonderful thing. This is our 9th episode. And while we emphasize the good and everything, it's a good time to reflect back on some of the people you saw in our videos, just to let you know, while all this good stuff was happening, we're involved in some stuff too. I mean, over half of the people you saw have been shot or shot at. One still has at least 1 bullet in them. Over half of the people you saw in the videos have been formally recognized and received commendation for saving at least 1 life. So there's critical stuff happening. And in the middle of all that, Mike and I are trying to share the good stuff on the side of law enforcement. And where we're going to go from here is we're going to start telling more funny stuff, maybe have snippet of the day, shorten some episodes down, so you have a place to go where you feel welcome, like you're sitting around the coffee shop with a few police officers, and you're getting to know them, and we're getting to know you as we go along. So stay tuned for more information in the coming episodes. Mike, you have any closing thoughts?
So that's what we like to do. The more stories we get, the better. Like people take the time out to sit down and handwrite in cursive a letter, and after what she had been through, it's fantastic. Makes me feel good. Makes me feel.
It should, Mike. It's wonderful. Like he passed a letter to me, I'd never read. Can I read that? I'm going, oh man, that's great stuff. You know, in that middle of the neighborhood. Hope she's well today and things like that. But yeah, Mike mentioned, yeah, we're going to open it up. If you're a civilian or normal citizen just watching this, and you have a positive experience with the police officer, go to our email, policearegoodpeople2 @gmail.com, and I'll assure you we'll get back with you. If you're uncomfortable like being filmed or anything, relay the story and we'll tell it on your behalf if you're comfortable with that. So we can open it up to civilians, any other police departments across the country. If you see this and you think, gosh, I got a great story that I'd really like be nice to get told on a platform like this, just contact us. We'll follow up and we'll take it from there. So we've enjoyed this so far these few months, Mike.
Absolutely.
It's been, we hope you have too. And feel free to leave a comment. If you have questions, we might go to that kind of a thing, question of the day. We're going to do some different things in the coming months. But for now, that will conclude episode 9.